So there's a lecture for AMP2. I'll kind of do this in a couple parts on chapter 18 in regards to blood. First, we'll discuss some just basic concepts and some basic characteristics of blood, and then we'll get specific into the different types of blood cells, erythrocytes, leukocytes, and platelets, and we'll talk about the kind of just the importance of having those cells and maintaining them and how they're produced. And then we'll talk, last but not least, just a little bit about blood typing and the importance of that. Okay, so first let's just start out with some basic characteristics of blood. All right, one of the big things when it comes to understanding blood and even just the cardiovascular system in general is we would like to say that this is a closed system. When we say this is a closed system, what we mean is you only find the blood, the substance that's being circulated throughout the body within the blood vessels. It stays within the system. Okay, and even though we do have a little bit of fluid exchange between blood and tissues for the purpose of unloading oxygen and nutrients to tissues and picking up waste products as blood is pumped by our cells and our tissues, all that water that we unload into the tissues will eventually be reloaded back into the blood. Okay, so basically all of this plays a big part in a fluid cycle, which we'll put together, throughout the next couple chapters that we're talking about. Okay. So the circulatory system is a closed system. It's a system that's not supposed to leak a lot, all right? And whatever is leaked out does return back into the bloodstream, all right? And if we do break a vessel and we make an opening in this closed system, then that's what we call bleeding. And if it's in really massive or high amounts, we would call that hemorrhaging, okay? So moral of the story, we want blood to stay within our blood vessels and our heart. We want to keep it contained, okay? And that's why we say it's a closed system, all right? Now, when it comes to talking about blood, first let's talk about the basic functions of blood. Probably the biggest function of blood would be transport, okay? We use blood to circulate substances all around our body. We use blood to circulate oxygen from our lungs to our healthy tissues. We use blood to circulate carbon dioxide, a gas that's a waste product, away from our healthy tissues to our lungs so we can exhale it. Okay, so we're transporting gases around our bloodstream, okay, to the proper areas where we need them. Okay, we're also transporting nutrients. We're transporting substances like glucose, amino acids, fatty acids, minerals, okay, electrolytes. We're circulating these around the body. Okay, again, for the importance of delivering them to tissues, okay, because cells are little metabolic machines that constantly need more than just oxygen. They need a lot of other fuel substrates. And blood is how we get them, how we get those fuels, those substrates to the working cells of our tissues, okay? So your blood is not only transporting useful substances to your tissues, to your cells to uptake and utilize, your blood is also transporting waste products away from tissues to a couple areas of the body so we can eliminate them. There are three major areas of the body that we're circulating waste products to for the purpose of eliminating them from the body. Okay, one of them is the lungs. Okay, we just mentioned this. We circulate carbon dioxide to the lungs so we can exhale it and get rid of it. If we start to lose our ability to do this, we're going to lose our ability to properly regulate our pH, and things are going to go awry, especially your metabolism and your nervous system. Okay, we're transporting a lot of waste products to your kidneys. Okay, your kidneys constantly filter and they filter your blood. They filter not all, but most of the unwanted waste out of the bloodstream, and they mix it with water and form urine, and then we expel that urine from our body, and the waste products are expelled out with it. Okay, granted, there's a lot more detail to the story than that, but we'll save that for the urinary system. All right, so we're transporting those wastes to the kidneys, and we're also circulating these waste products to the liver. Okay, some waste products and also a lot of nutrients as well. The liver, a lot of people like to say the liver detoxifies the body, which in a sense is true. The question is can you tell me what a toxin is? Even what does toxin even mean in medical terminology? Toxin means poison. So anything that's poison is potentially poisonous to the body. We could pump it there, and there are phagocytes that sit there and wait to clean out the blood and, clean out whatever, especially whatever we absorb in our GI tract goes to our liver. Sorry, wrong side. Goes to your liver, and then we figure out what to do with it there. Okay. Also, your spleen. Your spleen is good at picking up infections. If there's any pathogen in your blood, your spleen's going to pick up on it really quickly. Okay. So transport. That's one of the major functions of blood. Transport. Another one is immunity. Okay. Immunity. Your blood, contains cells of your immune system, white blood cells to be specific. Okay. And you know that your immune system protects you. Your immune system protects you from things that get you sick, which we would call pathogens. Or maybe there are things that we're a little sensitive to, like allergens, that stimulate an immune response. Okay? But that's, again, this is really important. I wouldn't necessarily lump these together and say, one's more important than the other, because without your immune system, you won't live. Okay? Because you'll get all these weird infections and you won't survive, as these organisms are killing you from the inside out. So your immune system is extremely important. Okay? Making sure we're getting fuels to our cells and getting waste products away is equally as important, because that's how they stay alive. Okay? Both of these help keep us alive. And regulation also helps keep us alive. Now, blood plays a role in regulation. It kind of helps, blood plays a role in, like I said, this fluid cycle, making sure that, we have a balanced amount of fluids between our blood and our tissue spaces. We don't want there to be an unequal distribution of water between our blood and our tissues as we're undergoing this fluid cycle, which we'll talk about more in depth later on. Okay, and also plays a role in regulating pH, because there are chemical buffers that are found within your blood that can help us neutralize our pH if we're going too extreme, whether we're getting too basic or too acidic. Okay, so these are the major functions of blood: right? Transport, immunity, and regulation. Okay. Now, when we talk about blood, we want to kind of talk about the general composition of blood, the makeup of blood. Okay? Now, blood is, 55, let's just say for the sake of discussion, blood is 55% plasma. What we're saying here is basically that blood is 55% water. Okay? Now, it's not just pure water, okay? Within your plasma, there are proteins, there are electrolytes, there are gases dissolved in there, so it's not just pure water. It's water with a bunch of solutes in it, okay? But this makes up the major composition of blood, plasma, the watery portion of your blood, okay? And then the remaining 45% is what we would call the formed elements of blood. When we say formed elements, think of the cells, okay? The cells of blood. Didn't turn out very well, sorry. Okay, the cellular makeup of blood. And there are three major types of cells that are found within the bloodstream. Okay, erythrocytes, leukocytes, and platelets. Erythrocytes, leukocytes, and platelets. Remember, ureth stands for red, and cyte is cell. So these are your red blood cells. Okay, these are your red blood cells. Leukocytes are your remember means white, and then cyte is cell. Leukocytes are your white blood cells. And then platelets, in a true sense, platelets are not really cells. They're actually fragments of cells that are found in your bone marrow called megakaryocytes. We'll talk about that later on in a little more detail. But when you put all three of these, three of these together, we can say this is the cellular makeup of blood, and this is what we call the formed elements of blood. And these are the two major parts of the bloodstream: plasma and the formed elements. Okay, plasma and the formed elements. All right. So now let's kind of talk about volume, how much blood a person typically has. All right. We can say that, the average human has about 4 to 6 liters of blood within their body. 4 to 6 liters of blood. Okay. Let's just for the sake of discussion in class, the average human has 5 liters of blood. Okay. The average human has 5 liters of blood. All right. Now, my question to you is does that number ever change? Do people's blood volumes go up or down? The answer is yes. Okay. Because remember, 55% of your blood is water. Okay. When you make sweat, when you need to cool yourself, that's where we get the water to create sweat from. We filter the plasma out of your blood, and the sweat glands turn it into sweat, and then we excrete it on our skin. That'll drop your blood volume. Okay? But you can correct that by drinking more water, rehydrating. Like, for example, if you go run a race and you lose some weight, you lose some body weight, okay, just because of sweating, you can regain that body weight back just by rehydrating again. Okay? You know, we make adaptations to exercise by increasing our blood volume. Okay? You know, and the percentage of cells in our blood. All right, now let me ask you this. What do you think is the biggest variable that plays into how much blood a person has? What's the biggest factor that will determine how much blood a human has? It's not exercise. It's not if you're sedentary or not. It's not what you eat. What it really is, the biggest factor is body size. Okay? I mean, Shaquille O'Neal is going to have more blood in his body than me. I'm 6'1" on a good day. I got to look up at him easily. Okay? He's a larger organism, has a larger body mass, larger, just more tissues. He needs more blood. Okay? So he's going to have a higher blood volume than myself. Okay? Just because he is a much larger individual than me and at the same time a heck of a basketball player. Okay? So we'll just say for the sake of discussion that humans have on average 5 liters of blood. Okay. Now, when we want to take a look at the composition of blood, we want to take a look at basically how much, if you want to say, okay, well, a person has 5 liters of blood, how can you kind of tell if, there's, the difference between the plasma and the water, or the plasma and the formed elements, how much of each there is? This is where a centrifuge would come in. You would draw a little bit of blood, and then what you would do is you put it in a centrifuge and spin it. And then you let that blood spin for a little while. And then what you would do is you would take a test tube, or you pull the test tube out of there, and then what you would do is you would look at how the blood separates. Okay, so well, let me ask you this: where would you find the formed elements after you spun this tube really fast? Think they'd be in the bottom or the top? Which one's heavier, water or the cells? The cells are. So the formed elements, okay, would kind of settle to the bottom, and then the plasma, the watery portion, would be on top. Okay, and this is fairly true. I mean, whenever you take blood out and spin it, this is what you should see. 55% plasma, 45% formed elements. Okay. So that's kind of again, that's kind of how we determine this. All right, and since cells are heavier than plasma, they're going to settle to the bottom. Now, you got to remember when you're looking at plasma after you pull it out and you see the separation take place, plasma is not just going to look like water. It's not going to be clear. It's going to have kind of maybe a yellowish color to it because of all the solutes that are dissolved in it. Okay, which makes it a little more opaque and harder to see through, unlike water. Okay, so that's basically blood composition within the human body. Okay, now what I want to do next is just start talking about the two different parts of blood. I want to start talking a little bit about plasma and the erythrocytes. Oh, that erased poorly. Okay. Okay, we'll work around that. Okay, so let's talk about plasma a little bit, the watery portion of blood. So first, that plasma is basically just water. So let's just talk about what's